Good. Lovers of the world, you are free. You are free to go about your day with love as your purpose and your focus. We understand that many of you may not see it that way, for the dark clouds in the world can feel all-consuming, all-enveloping. They can seem anti-love. And of course, there is that faction, there is that contingent, but love is the highest octave on the planet. Love is deeply connected to peace, harmony, and oneness. So for many of you, the experience of feeling love inside yourself, inside your humanity, inside your soul, is the highest point that many will reach. So it can feel like a peak for you. However, the more you practice the octave of love, the more the finer tuned layers of peace, joy, wisdom start to reveal themselves to you. It is no different to your eyes adjusting to the light. When you first walk into a darkened space, you see immediately the most obvious shapes, things to navigate in the space. But as your eyes begin to open and adjust, your senses increase around this seemingly dark space that you were in moments ago. It is the same with layers of love. And many of you are lovers of the world in the way you wish to care for the world, repair the world. When you see ills taking place in the world, it can strip some of you to your core. It can knock you off your feet. It can take your breath away. This is a phase of the process. We are not in any way saying that any of you should wish to become immune to compassion. That is not what we are saying. But many of you are rising into becoming warriors of love on the planet, for the planet, and with the planetary energies of love. So some of you may be listening to us thinking, well, that's all well and good, but I'm actually here because I'm struggling in my marriage, or I feel like I don't have enough freedom in my life. It's all a lot more down to earth for me right now. And we say, no, it is not. Your point of focus might be that it's all a lot more down to earth for you, but you cannot be separate from universal energy on the earth. You have just been trained to think you are separate from it. But in fact, universal forces are driving your everyday actions right now. So even for those of you who think that where your focus is right now is perhaps needing to be, if you are feeling judgmental, you could say more mundane than your spiritual life. You could say more limited than your spiritual life. And we will say, wherever your focus is, that is where your spirit is going. So wherever you allow yourself to focus in your life, that is where your spirit and your soul are allowed to show up. So if you are focusing on news that is distressing you from a friend or a loved one, or perhaps from out there in the world, and you keep replaying and re-engaging with this distressing news over and over again, your soul and your spirit are going to start to respond to your focus on stress and distress. Sometimes your soul and your spirit will try and get your attention away from focusing on this. If it is not good for you, meaning you are not using that focus to simply release some stress and distress, but instead you are essentially boxing yourself into a certain way of thinking and feeling, which is easily done for humans, by the way. You mustn't be hard on yourself about that. It's woven into your society. You have all been told that the room that you are in is 50 times smaller than it truly is. None of you are living in the small, focused lives you actually think you are. You are vast. And you have layers of reality that you are interacting with elsewhere that feed into your life on earth. And yet, Your life on earth is very important. Your human life, your human focus, it is not to be denied or pulled away from. But why we bring this up to you is we want you to understand the power of your focus on a daily basis. Because you are entering a time in your history where there is a competition for your focus on earth. There is the light, there is consciousness, there is love. There are those humans and other beings who are radiating those energies onto the planet. And then there are those who would like you to keep thinking that not only is the room 50 times smaller than it truly is, they'd like you to get into a room that's 100 times smaller. And that won't and can't come to pass, but there will be almighty attempts at it, particularly in the next year or two. And that's okay. You need not worry about what we just said. Notice if that starts worrying you. If it's worrying you, there is an imprint in your body from times past. There is an imprint in your body of what happens when others may try to suppress or hijack you or stop you. That is why we had to address this at the beginning of the message that Lee read out to you. It is not our joy to speak to you about wounds, because even that word has a lower vibration for many of you and a lower connotation. But if we don't address it and start there, you will never let your light body in, because you will be so convinced as these wounds rise that you will think you aren't bringing your light body on board. You will think you are regressing. You will think you are playing out old behaviors. And we say, no, no, no. As you let more of your light body in, you have to burn off the old habits and identities that were born of a previous time where you believed that you and your life are far smaller than you really are. So if the idea of you being a vast being, a vast soul, is pleasing to you, if you right now are feeling a little bit of that vastness coming back, why? Because we are seeing you. When the soul is seen, it feels good. Now, for some, it can feel triggering or suspicious or something you want to defend against, because you have done a wonderful job of keeping your soul organized inside your body and inside your human patterns and your human identity so that you don't bother too many other humans. Because guess what? At a young age, you learned that there is a cost to bothering other humans. You can be punished. You can be ostracized. You can be rejected. So the modification began, and you stuffed down parts of yourself. Well, for some of you, you are entering a period in your life like never before. For some of you, you are taking the lid off who you are in a way that even you don't recognize. Even if you have been what you might call a spiritual seeker or student for a decade or more, even you are shocked at what you're experiencing right now. And guess what? That is the rising tide of consciousness. Even you are surprised at how certain things are dropping off you. Layers, sheets of identity are leaving you. You might be surprised at how willing you are for this to happen, because it's happening at a speed and with a precision that you never saw coming in such an easy way. But equally, there are parts of you that will rise and want to fight what is happening. And they are the parts that you sometimes think, this is me regressing. And we say, no, no, no. This is you evolving and trying to figure out which bags of sand to throw out of the hot air balloon. Because that hot air balloon is not going to keep rising if you keep the same weight in the basket. And there is a time when rising is appropriate, and there is a time when it isn't. So we also want to clean up some belief that some of you might have that higher is better, rising is best. No, everything in balance and everything in its right time. But There is a rising tide of consciousness, particularly at this end of 2023, which if you are watching this video in the future and you are resonating with what we are saying, you will be in a part of that wave in the future. But right now on Earth, many of you are beginning to leap inside yourselves. Some of you are managing to do this because you have spent the last year or 2 or 3 going through some, we will say, challenging times. Slowly and deliberately excavating parts of yourself, excavating old behaviors, old patterns. But here you are, throwing sandbags out of the hot air balloon with joy and marveling at not just the view, but the feeling of being in this light body above the ground. So there is a time to rise, and then there is a time to what you might call integrate or ground. We would say a time for stillness. And many of you have been surfing rises lately. You have been going through big leaps in yourself, in your circumstances. Some of you are just about ready to invite those in, to allow in new levels of light, new levels of height. Because you have spent a long time leveling the foundation of the old house, leveling what was there. And now you can build. But as a general rule, we would like to introduce a principle to all of you for the next 2 to 3 years. Look for balance. If you have felt low or suppressed or down or challenged for a long time, put all of your focus toward bringing in light, peace, joy, uplift. If you have been what you might term high for a while or particularly elevated for a while, put your focus on the ground and earthing this frequency. Both states can be addictive. You can become addicted to lower vibrations and you can become addicted to higher vibrations. But the trick is allowing both to move through your body, which in turn sets in motion inside your body a healing spiral, where you can go up and down and round the spiral inside yourself. For some of you, as you have gone through these leaps, rises lately, it has been a little challenging with the people in your life. Hard to, for some of you, get so grounded on the level that they are at that you can communicate with them. Equally, some of you who've been on a lower level lately and not feeling so good, it's been hard for you to connect with your higher people, those who seem to be flowing, and we would say challenge that belief too. If balance needs to be a focus of yours in the coming 2 to 3 years, a focus we have given all of you, because the energies will be pumping fast. So the way that you will stay most stable is to pay attention to the pump and notice where you are in that scale. And counterbalance where possible. By all means, have a wonderful week where you're flying high, but don't try and push it into week 2 and 3 without realizing that the balloon is going to have to come down and hit the ground at some point. And then you can go back up again. The same is true of your perception of your friends or loved ones who can or can't be there for you when you are in the opposite state. Are you one who isolates when you are feeling down or stuck? Time to break that habit. Who is the most trusted friend or person in your life that you could triumphasize the great discomfort of reaching out when normally you wouldn't? You can even be deeply honest and say, I'm calling you because I'm having a bit of a rough time, and normally my approach to this would be to stay silent until I feel better again. So thank you for listening. I'm challenging my comfort zone, and I just had an instinct you would be someone I could call and express this to. Even doing that will be 50% of the battle. 50% of the healing will be done there. Equally, if you are flying high, don't be scared to reach out to those people who you think might slow your flow. They won't. This is a time for humanity to share. The time of separation is leaving you. You have come through a very